Notice to the public, if you wish to address the council, please complete the public wishing to address the council form located on a table nearest to the entrance of the building and give it to either the chairman or the council clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. Individuals addressing the council should be respectful of others in their choice of words and actions. All cell phones, pagers, and electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Budget and Finance Committee, November 8th, 2021, 5:30 p.m. I will be doing an invocation followed by the pledge. If everyone would please rise. Dear Lord, we come before you today and we ask for your wisdom and your guidance as we look through the budget and take care of the business of the parish, Lord. We also ask that your blessings and your favor would be upon the citizens of Terrebonne Parish as they're continuing to deal with Hurricane Ida, Lord. Let things work out for the better for all those that are involved, Lord, and give us peace in knowing that we're doing what you would direct us to do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Hampton, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Darren Guidry?
Here.
Mr. Bavin? Mr. Dirk Guidry? Mr. Trosclair? Mr. Navy? Mr. Harding? Mr. Michel? Mr. Amade?
Here.
Mrs. Domain? Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum present.
Thank you. Just a couple items. One, Mr. Michel sends his apologies. He's going to be running a little late this evening. And Ms. Jessica Domain is attending a police jury meeting representing the parish council. With that, item number one, to review the proposed 2022 budget for the following funds and departments, agencies. I'll read through them real quick before I turn it over for you. Juvenile Detention, Parish Prisoners, Parish Jail, Prisoners, Medical Department, Police Department, Fire Department, Auditoriums, Parks and Grounds, Air Base Splash Park, Parish Transportation Fund, Road and Bridge, Drainage Health Unit, Terrebonne Elderly and Disabled, Terrebonne ARC, Mental Health, Parish-wide Recreation, Bayou Country Sports Park, Utilities Department, Pollution Control, Sanitation, Civic Center, Risk Management, Human Resources, Purchasing, Information Technology, Fleet Maintenance, Debt Service Funds, and Capital Projects. I just want to thank all the department heads for coming. That way, if we have any questions, we can hear it straight from you guys. But most of all, Ms. Candace, it is now yours.
Thank you, sir. So a couple of things to make note of before we get started. This budget, we kind of have to think of it as being prepared prior to the hurricane. There are a few adjustments that we did do, property tax, and a couple of the expenses that we knew. The money that we know we're going to be getting in, the expenses that we know we're going to have for repairs, all of that is going to be done through budget amendments. So that's not quite part of this budget. So we just got to keep that in mind. Because of the short time, we're going to do budget hearings tonight. We'll do it next Wednesday. Any changes that you have, you'll vote on it the November 29th committee meeting. And then the first December meeting is when we will adopt the budget. So just kind of putting all that in place. So I know it's a long list. I'm going to try to go through it quick, but if you have any questions, just stop me in case I don't notice. So our first one for tonight is going to be juvenile detention. Our budget highlights are that ad valorem taxes are levied 20 years through a .96 mil and a .94 mil, and we have $1,880,219 that is proposed for 2022. We have revenue generated from housing state DOC juveniles and from the Office of Youth Development estimated for $40,000. Revenue generated from housing out of parish jails is out of parish juveniles is estimated at $150,000. We are able to decrease our general fund supplement, so it's a decrease of $509,553. We have the Spark, which is a $250,000 transfer to criminal court fund, and we have capital for them for $42,000.
Any questions, members?
All right, moving over to our Parish Prisoners Fund, we're going to look on page 130. So the budget highlights here, we have an agreement with parish government and the Sheriff of Terrebonne Parish for the maintenance and operation of the jails. Parish government pays $12.60 per diem for the maintenance of non-DOC prisoners, and the sheriff shall share with the parish 50% of the DOC reimbursements. For 2022, the parish is estimating to receive $815,000 from the sheriff of Terrebonne, which is about $147,000 more than 2021. We also were able to decrease our general fund supplement. The supplement for 2022 is $3,765,000. On the next page is the Parish Prisoners Department. So this is where the expenses for the keeping and feeding, the projected cost for 2022 is $1,900,000. And then on page 133, this is going to be our prisoners' medical department. So the parish currently contracts with the Haydell Clinic for physician's care at $90,000 per year. This includes dental, ambulance, and hospital. The medical services for 2022 are budgeted at $100,000, and prescription and over-the-counter medications at $165,000. We also have the intergovernmental agreement with the Sheriff's Office for the medical administrator to become the employee of Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office, and Terrebonne Parish government will reimburse the actual base salary paid to the medical administrator.
Mr. Babin?
Candace, how does this, the prisoners not being there affect all of this?
So we actually pay for them to be transported to wherever they're being housing or housed. So we still pay for the housing and the keeping of them at whatever parish jail they're at.
And it's more expensive than if they were
Much
in
more
our
expensive.
jail.
Yes, sir.
So the budget will,
So the
we may
budget,
have to make some budget adjustments down the line.
correct. Yes, sir. So hopefully by January 1st, the prisoners will be back or even close to being back. But yes, if they're housed outside of the parish for a longer period of time, we'll have to adjust it to increase it.
Thank you.
Mr. Guidry, you have a question?
And I assume this extra amount of money for the prisoners would be a FEMA reimbursable item since it is storm-related?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Candace?
Okay, so we'll move over to our public safety fund, which is going to start on page 134. So we have an ad valorem tax proposed for 2022 in the amount of $4,378,204, which is for our city alimony, city fire, and city police protection. We also have a 1% parish-wide that is divided equally between police jury, city of Houma, and parish school board. So the 1/3 city of Houma portion is dedicated to the public safety fund, and it is projected to come in at $8,300,000, which is a 10.85% increase from 2020. Insurance occupational licenses in the city are proposed to collect $900,000. Occupational licenses collected within the city is $208,000. Court fines are proposed at $75,000. And our general fund supplement for this 2022 is $500,000. So then we can go over to page 136, and this will be for the Houma Police Department. We have the 2% adjustment across the board that is mandated by state law. If you remember last meeting when we introduced the budget and Mr. Dove read his letter, we are proposing a 4% cost of living increase for everybody. So this police department and the fire department will get the 4%. So they're 2% state law and then an additional 2% to meet that 4%. Police department is also budgeting for capital. We have 5 new vehicles and a battery backup.
I wanted to ask you before, on the public safety fund, general fund supplement $500,000, a decrease of $2,416,000?
Yes, sir. So the American Rescue Plan money that we got, that is allowing us to use governmental services, that is helping us to decrease a lot of these general fund supplements that you see happening in here too, as well as the increase in sales tax. So when we budgeted this through September, we had a 10.85% increase compared to 2020. So we kept the collections the same as we have collected to date in 2021. So that's built up some extra excess funds that allows us to decrease those general fund supplements.
So if we get the same money again next year, so somewhere down the line, this is going to go back up.
Yes, sir.
Because we're using one-time money for it.
Yes, sir.
Well, two-time money for it.
Correct, 2 times, yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, we will eventually have to, increase those general fund supplements again, but it's allowing us to decrease them at this point.
Okay, good.
So going over to our fire department, they are going to be on page 140. Their retirement board meeting at January 21st, 2021, they have adopted retirement employer contribution rates at 33.75%. They have the 2% adjustment that's required, so they'll get the total 4. And they have some capital as well. We have some equipment for $25,000, motor vehicle for $30,000, furniture and fixtures for $8,000, and we're putting $300,000 this year towards a new fire truck. So we'll put $300,000 for the next couple of years until we can build up that account for them to be able to purchase their new fire truck.
Ms. Marlin, can you give me just a moment? Just for the record, just make note that Mr. Navy is now part of the meeting. Thank you. Go on.
All right, so if there's no questions for fire department, we'll move on to our non-district recreation, which includes the auditorium, parks and grounds, and air base splash park. So the non-district recreation, we have a general fund transfer of $68,968. We have a parish. Are you watching me?
There's two of y'all in there.
I was just seeing whether we were streaming because a constituent told me they couldn't, they swore that we were not streaming on Facebook,
But we are.
but I don't know how to use this dang thing.
Okay, so the parish-wide recreation transfer is $154,138, and this department does receive $111,000 of the sales tax money. So if we go over to the auditoriums, there are no significant changes for them in 2022. Going over to parks and grounds on page 145, we have a maintenance contract for grass cutting and park maintenance, which is $122,000, which is the same as this year. And then on page 146, this is the new department that we set up. This is for the air-based splash park that the parish is now overtaking. So we actually adopted the budget in 2021 to add it, and there's no significant changes for 2022. Okay, moving on, we are going to go to our parish transportation fund, which is Fund 250. Which will be on page 154. So the revenues in this fund are subject to the annual state appropriation. So therefore, we just budget the $600,000 for what we expect the state to budget for the appropriation for June 30th, 2022. We have direct services for street repairs of $806,676, which are based on the estimated 2022 revenue coming in and what we're estimating to have left over in this parish transportation. So we're adding $806,000 in 2022 for it. All right, next is going to be our road and bridge. We'll look at page 156 for this. We have a quarter-cent sales tax that is used to fund this division. The 2021 revenues are estimated at $6.4 million, which is a 12.32% increase from 2020 and a 0.78% increase from our 2021 collections to date. The general fund supplements this division as needed. For 2022, the general fund supplement is going to be $0. We have our major operating expenditures. Gasoline and oil is $125,000. Shells is $175,000. Urban streetlights, $168,320. And our street repairs is $1.4 million. We have some personnel requests in this budget. We are wanting to add one Field Tech 1. We're wanting to transfer 2 sign techs to Field Tech 1. It's just increasing their grade. and then add one field tech 2. And then the capital projects for the Road and Bridge Fund, we have various bridge work of $715,000. This includes the Klondike, Bobtown, Smith Ridge, and Terrio. So this is another reminder here, we have several bridges that need repairs from the hurricane. They're not included in here because we know either through FEMA, CDBG money, HUD money, or insurance refunds will do it there.
Candace. Under the budget highlights, it says the 2021 general fund supplement is 0.
That should be
It's
2022.
Okay. I think you said 2022, but I was reading.
It should be 2022.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Guidry?
Yeah, I have a question. There was discussion on the council, and I think we even passed a resolution that if it was found that we could use some of the American Recovery Funds to increase the amount of overlay, where are we on that?
So we're nowhere with that, if I'm going to be honest. So there's actually a lot of talk about the use of the American Rescue Plan money. Since the disasters have happened, some of that can be changed. So we do have in here, I think it's another $1 million for road overlay through our current budget. So as far as adding it, and y'all did pass a resolution, if it was found that it was available for that, we could do it. As of right now, the American Rescue Plan money is still not available for roads or any type of infrastructure other than the broadband, the water, and sewer.
And I know I say overlay, but I mean repair and overlay of roadways. But
Right.
thanks.
So the American Rescue Plan we talked about right now at this
Yeah.
point is still not available for that.
So we're still looking into that.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Any other questions on this? Before we go, Ms. Candace, let the record show that Mr. Michel has joined the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, we have a few other capital items in Road and Bridge. We have some dump trucks, Bobcat and trailers, some gas post drivers, and some extended cab drivers that we are wanting to add for 2022. All right, we'll move over to drainage. We'll look at the budget highlights on page 161. We have a quarter-cent sales tax that is used to fund this division. It is estimated to be $6.4 million in revenue for 2022. We also have an ad valorem tax. It is 7.15 mils, which we are estimating it to generate about $7.1 million for 2022. Our major operating expenditures for drainage, we have other contracts, which is $1.2 million. Gasoline and oil, $350,000. Diesel and pumps is $1.15 million. Pump repairs is $650,000. Contractor repairs is $400,000. Canal and lateral ditch maintenance is $120,000. Collection canal cleaning is $20,000, and permit monitoring is $46,000.
Mr. Babin?
How do we compensate for the rise in gasoline prices since the hurricane?
So we wait to see how it affects us. So right now, we are doing it as if the $350,000 we have from 2021 is covering where we have so far to date. We're doing it the same. If they increase, we'll have to come and do a budget amendment and either take it from some type of fund balance or reduce the expenses from somewhere else.
Mr.
Now,
Darren Guidry?
now, these, your diesel was based on the expenses we had in this year to date to use for next year's?
Correct.
Because there's some, like say for instance, Hanson Canal, which operated most of the year on diesel, which is now on utilities. So that would be figured in. Now, the utilities is a separate section in the budget when you figure
It is.
utilities?
It is. So we have it, and in fact, David Rome and I talked, I think it was right before the storm hit, where we had to increase the utilities in 2021 because of the new pumps that have come online. So that is in here, and that will be the same amount for 2022 that we were projecting for 2021. So that is accounted for in that utilities account, but it is separate from what you're seeing in diesel and pumps.
So in theory, it should be more cost-effective being on electric power than it is for diesel. So it may be a wash at the end.
It may be a wash with the increase in gasoline and oil, and then the decrease, in the use that we need for diesel. So overall, it may be a washout.
Okay, thanks.
Mr.
Yep.
Trosclair?
Thank you. Candace, on the diesel pumps, pump repairs, we got an increase of $200,000. Is that a known increase, or is that a projected increase?
Is that what was your first question?
Pump repairs.
Uh-huh.
okay? We have an increase, we budgeted $650,000, an increase of $200,000. So is that $200,000 a known? Do we know we did?
We-
Or we just anticipate?
We
more-
don't know.
more
The
repairs?
200 is an estimate, and it's based on what we've had to increase over the past couple of years with the new pumps and stuff that have been put in, and, the age of other ones. So it is not a known 200,000, it's just an estimate, so that we don't have to come back with a budget amendment.
Thank you.
Ms. Candace, and this is probably going to be for Mr. Rome, but on the other contracts, privatizing the lateral maintenance and expand the acreage rotation, you want to shed a little light on that? Give her a water break?
Absolutely. Good evening, David Rome, Director of Public Works for Terrebonne Parish. To answer your question, sir, since we've moved to the new contract where we have complete control over it, we are still kind of working out some of the bugs because remember we got hit by COVID and then we got hit by multiple storms. But we are seeing that there is a value to it simply because what's being cut has to be cut. It's not being cut because it's set on a schedule that is pre-existing, and the contract is making that determination. The parish now makes the determination of that it needs to be cut, and that's where we're seeing that savings coming at.
So that's going with the same maintenance contractor that we're using?
I believe that contract and the maintenance contract are both up for renewal.
Okay. And that keeps you from having to increase staff?
Correct, yes,
Which
sir.
is good because
You
can't
don't have
get
to pay
people.
retirement. Exactly.
Nobody applies, so I think that relieves you on that, so.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rome.
Yes, sir.
Short break, Ms. Molden.
I think you got away easy. Okay, so we also have some personnel requests within the drainage, speaking of hiring people. We are wanting to add one operations supervisor for inspections. This is going to transfer our culvert inspector into this position because of the increase in the work that's needed in the supervision roles. We're going to eliminate that one culvert inspector. We're going to add one crew leader. We're going to add one automation analyst hardware, as well as one automation analyst software, and add one pump attendant. We also have some capital expenditures. There's going to be 2 tandem axle dump trucks, 1 grade all, 4 pickup trucks. The telemetry, we add usually $300,000 each year to that telemetry. We have various projects, portable generators, additional pumps for $1 million, and we have a camera with a culvert locator for $29,000.
Seeing no questions.
All right, so we'll go over to health unit, which we are going to look at page,
168.
we'll actually read on page 170. So our budget highlights, we have a 1.66 mil ad valorem tax approved by the voters. If you remember correctly, we did not levy the full 1.66 mil. We actually did 0.66, so the generated estimated revenue is $653,993. So if you see that there's a big decrease, that is why. We also have reimbursement of various expenditures incurred by the state, which is $400,000, and it's the same as 2021. Next, we'll go over to our Terrebonne elderly and disabled. We will look on page 173. We have a 7.5 mil ad valorem tax, and it will generate $7.4 million in 2022. We have the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement with Council on Aging to provide services to the elderly and disabled, which we have estimated at $7.5 million for 2022. This is just an estimate. When it comes down to a Council on Aging to do their budget, they have to turn it in. When we start with the millage levy, we'll evaluate all of that. Y'all will approve the budget, and if we need to adjust this total, we will at that time. We also have the elderly programs at Mechanicville Community Center for $150,000, and we have $2.4 million for the American Legion capital improvements to support the elderly and disabled veterans. All right, so next we will do Terrebonne Arc. So we are going to look on page 176. We have a 5.2 mil ad valorem tax, which will generate about 5.2 million in 2022. We have a cooperative endeavor agreement with Terrebonne Arc to provide services, and it is estimated to be 5.25 million in 2022. And Terrebonne Arc also has their own independent budget that is adopted and submitted. Okay. Next, we'll go over to our parish-wide recreation fund. So under the, I'm sorry, I was just following in the order. I didn't put that in order. So mental health is on page 187. The budget highlights are the ad valorem tax of 0.42 mils. The estimated revenue is $415,594. The allocation of the ad valorem is 40% mental health, and then alcohol and drug abuse. So 60% mental health, 40% alcohol and drug abuse. We have the transfer to the criminal court fund, which is the drug court department, for $47,514.
Mr. Babin?
Yeah, the .42 mils, is that maxed out?
Yes, sir. That is the max.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll go back to page 178 to talk about parish-wide recreation. Parish-wide recreation has a 2.21 mil, which is expected to collect $2,186,991 in 2022. We have registration fees, which are proposed to generate an estimated $77,915. We have Special Olympics expenditures for $51,000 and summer camps for $200,000. For our TPR administration, you'll see on page 179, this is all of the proposed sports for this year, and we have no significant changes for them.
Ms. Candace?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Navy?
So in 2020, we had budgeted, but this is showing you what was actually spent. So this is saying that, hey, in 2020, we didn't have any because of it, even though it was budgeted. It doesn't roll forward to the actual summer camps because there were no contracts with it. It just get closed out to the fund balance for parish-wide recreation fund to be able to use in the future. No, we have 200,000 budgeted in total for all recreation summer camps, and we'll allocate it as needed based on their enrollment and stuff like that. The graph that you're looking at right there is just what was actual for 2020, and 2021. 2022, we have a total of 200,000, and it's based on the enrollment that they have, if they have registration fees or anything like that, as to how we allocate or what we allocate. But most of the time you start out with that 30,000. So it's up to the rec districts to adopt their resolution and their ordinance to say that they want to have the summer camp, and then they'll approach Roddy LaRue, and it'll all get set up through CEAs with them individually. It's always been that way. So the rec districts decide, the board decides, hey, we want to have a summer camp. They adopt a resolution. They submit it to the Recreation Department to determine, based on what they're wanting to do, their enrollment compared to last year, as to what the funding will be for this summer camp this year.
And it's more like a grant to them.
Correct. Correct.
All right.
Because they also have to then, after the summer camp is over, they have to submit to us their total expenses and revenues. And if they didn't use all of the money that we granted to them, they reimburse us back.
I have a question for Mr. Roddy. With all the damage to the parks in the south, how's that going to affect recreation in the parish? It's a little bit off budget, but will it cause any increases that you foresee? Just to make
Good
this a
evening.
budget question?
Roddy LaRue, Terrebonne Parish Recreation Director. We did have a meeting with all the districts a couple of weeks ago, and the districts that were present did report to us. A lot of the facilities in the southern parts of the parish are damaged, heavily damaged. Some of them, Grand Caillou, Little Caillou Gym, estimate that will not be able to be used at least for a year. Baseball facilities the same, outdoor facilities the same in those areas. On the northern side of the parish, those facilities are less impacted. So we are making arrangements to continue or restart the recreational programs in January. So unfortunately, we had to suspend or postpone and cancel football, volleyball, and cheer. Now, in reference to budget questioning, as you may or may not know, all the facilities are managed and maintained by all the recreation districts. So any funding for the repairs would go through the recreation
Yeah, it
districts.
was more of an administration thing because you're going to have to be moving so many things around in order to accommodate the teams from the south going into the north and stuff. And
So-
of course, if that comes up, then we'll just do an amendment to make sure that the kids have what they need.
Yes, if needed, we'll
Now-
definitely come to you guys and ask for the funding that's
Yeah.
needed. We think we have it resolved to start back up in January and utilize our properties along with some of the Terrebonne Parish School District properties to get back in the gym. We're gonna have our plans are to have shortened seasons, but we are planning a basketball season, which usually takes place in December, to start that in February, and then a little league basketball, which typically takes place in March. We're gonna have that in January. We're gonna shuffle a few things around because of the availability of facilities, and we know we'll be able to do those programs. I was given word today that with the facilities that are available from the school system, that we'll be able to have those programs, and then we'll be able to move into our baseball and softball programs and continue on. But it will all be affected. It'll be shortened seasons to be able to get it all in, all the way down the line through 2022.
But it at least gets the kids
Something.
back to some normalcy, even if it's a little bit different time of the year, and I think that it's important for their mental health. I know it would be for mine. Mr. Navy, you had a question?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct about the mental health aspect of it. The question I have is reference to the facility in the Canterbury Gym. I know a lot of the schools are using it for practices and stuff like that. I'm really glad to see that because, like you were, that was one of the less impacted facilities in Terrebonne Parish, and I'm glad that they did renovate it because there probably would have been no facilities to
correct.
actually. So, do we have a time frame? Because I know that Ellender and South Terrebonne is really damaged very heavily. They can't use their facilities. Will they be able to continue on throughout the year?
So that was another part of our thinking, Mr. Navy, is that right now, let the schools use our facilities
Right.
that are available. And then when we're gonna start our programming, they'll be done already.
Okay.
So that was another reason for kind of rearranging everything around.
Right, because like I said, they won't be in those facilities for a long time.
Correct.
Ellender and South Terrebonne down the bayou, that, you Chef Third.
Mhm.
It's going to be maybe a year or more. Okay,
Yes.
so I just was wondering what was going to be the time frame that we're going to continue to work with the school system, because I think we should. Like you just said about the mental health capacity of it too. These school districts, those kids are, especially down the bayou, they're heavily impacted. They need to be doing something to energize them and keep them busy besides going out the streets and causing problems and causing havoc. So we need to keep them doing some positive things. That's why I was wondering if we're going to keep on that needs that can use those facilities and not putting a time frame to when we think that they need to be out of those facilities.
That is the plan, yes, sir.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure I appreciate that.
Mr. Trosclair.
Yes, just a quick question. Excuse me, I know we got, some of the high schools that are kind of split days and stuff. There may be a couple elementary schools doing it too. When we have these programs during school times, I mean, some of these kids are not getting out till late in the afternoon. Are y'all gonna work with these practices and the game scheduling and stuff?
Yes, there's definitely the plan to try and work around all those things, work around the holidays. We sat down the last couple of weeks, and that's been our main focus, is planning the 2022 sports season around all of these obstacles.
Because, I know like the high schools, they're not get home till 6:30, in the evenings.
Well, not the tunnel closed now, so maybe later.
Later than that, it's gonna be.
We discussed a lot of things, especially when it comes to like basketball and all, where there's a lot of teams, and again, it may be to where we have a season, but then the practices may be limited. But in all fairness, we're gonna offer the same amount of practices to each team. In other words, prior to the basketball season, each team may be only allowed 3 practices, but we'll keep that fair and consistent throughout the program. Not one team getting 5, one team getting 7, another team getting 3. That's how we plan on approaching it.
Okay, I think it's a reasonable approach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Harding.
It's hard to hear you. What was the question?
Recently, the task force made some recommendations on how some of these recreation districts can handle their facilities, whether they can rent them out or not rent them out. So how are we going to make the adjustment, because we are in such a high demand, having less gyms and facilities that are available? And
Right.
have y'all
So-
considered that?
On the gym side, traditionally, we have not used the northern side of the parish gyms as frequently as the middle portion and the southern portion. So again, our intentions are to use the Gibson and the Jonna gyms, which hadn't been used in the past. The Andrew Price gym has had some damage, but they are going to go in scheduled maintenance at the time. So we should have that gym back, the Oakshire gym back. Then again, we've also been able to determine that we'll be able to use Terrebonne's gym, H.L. Bourgeois' gym, which at Terrebonne there are 2 gyms, Bourgeois there are 2 gyms, the Evergreen gym, and use the high school gyms to supplement for the gyms that are not available.
So actually it won't really affect?
It should.
Yeah,
It should. Shouldn't affect it.
thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Lareal.
You're welcome.
Ms. Candace, Mr. Babin has a question for you.
Yes, sir.
On the summer camps,
Yes, sir.
how many summer camps do we normally have, recreation districts?
So in the past, there has usually been about 8 or 9. 2021 was the first year post-COVID that they were able to have it. So there was only 6, I think, a very handful. There's usually only like 3 or 4 of the districts that decide not to participate and not have a summer camp.
If somebody like Buy a Black, okay, Buy a Black get the $30,000 reimbursement, or their registration covers it?
So we would give them the funding up front to help them. When they turn in their financial statements, if their registration exceeded what we gave them and, all of that, then they would pay it back to us.
Okay, so it can only be used for that, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir, absolutely. It can only be for a summer camp.
Okay, thanks.
Before I get to you, Mr. Harding, members, whenever you speak, try to make sure your mic's on. That way the recording's picked up for all the people out there. I'm sure they're fussing, they can't hear. So we can give them the courtesy. They won't think we're trying to do something sneaky on them. Mr. Harding?
Yes, Because I hope this is in order, because, you know, I mean, this is the question with recreation and I think the sports complex and perhaps the civic center. And then we rely on hotel taxes, don't we?
Hotel motel taxes are relied on for the sports park, as well as the civic center,
Okay then, yeah.
but
so I
not
was-
recreation.
Yeah, so I guess this question later on down the line, because,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Good one.
Anything else on recreation? I think we kind of covered most of it. Okay, so we will go over to the Bayou Country Sports Park next. And we will look on page 194. So the hotel motel tax is estimated to be about $300,000 for 2022. The hotel motel tax is used to pay off some of the debt that was issued to purchase the property for the Bayou Country Sports Park. So you will see that we have the annual debt service of $203,550. Anything that's remaining in that fund can be used to supplement the Bayou Country Sports Park. One highlight that's not on here that probably should have been is if you look at the top, the miscellaneous revenue, you'll see for 2021 it's about $490,000, and for 2022 it's $560,000. This is actually the sponsorships that they have gotten for the sports park. So we had some significant ones that are allowing us to do some of the expenses and have some of the repairs and build out of the sports park. So that is there, and all that is there is what we know we will get. So there's no estimating an increase because we think we're gonna get more sponsorships once the ballpark, the boys' parks and all that open. This is what we know we're gonna get. So we're still expecting that to increase. We have a transfer. When we set up the Vegetation Department within Clay's department, we had some individuals that were only for Bayou Country Sports Park. So we're actually going to just move them. It's just a matter of moving them from one department to the other, so that way we can see the actual expenses that it is to maintain that park.
Mr. Charles Clare?
Yes, thank you. Candace, the bond debt for that hotel motel debt, what's the duration of that?
So it is, I think 6 more years.
6 more years?
And it actually went to the vote of the people to increase the hotel motel tax in order to do it. So once the bond is finished paid out, that additional 1% hotel motel goes away too.
Oh, it goes away. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Harding?
Correct. They were full beforehand too. With the, so with the COVID, with the offshore companies, they had to quarantine. So we've seen a significant, and you can kind of see that in the intergovernmental revenue for the year. You'll see for 2021, we're projecting $620,000, and that was pre-hurricane. I didn't take into account anything with the hurricane. Right, so anything that is dedicated to the Bayou Country Sports Park, if it's not needed to pay that annual debt service, it goes within this fund to help either with operating expenses or with capital. This is being transferred from Clay over to the Bayou Country Sports Park. Yeah, because their time is 100% designated to Bayou Country Sports Park. And so accounting purposes, it's easier for us to actually just move them to this department instead of doing back charges.
Mr. Michel?
You said there's $203,550 for the debt service. What is the other $500,000 transfer out for?
The $500,000 is going to our capital projects. I believe the $500,000 is for either the concession stand for the boys' park or the common areas. We have that in our 600 funds.
Why is it listed as a transfer out?
Because it is part of a bigger project. So anything that is significant capital improvements or building of anything, we charge it to our 600 funds. It's a capital projects fund. It's those that get carried over from year to year, and it's not an operating capital.
Thank you.
Steve, you have something else? Okay. Mr. Darren Gidger.
So some of those transfers out, could that be matching funds like for capital outlay? 'Cause I know there's some capital
So for
outlay.
2022, it would not be considered match because we don't know what we've requested yet when we were doing this. But what we usually come to you during the year for a budget amendment would be a capital outlay match.
Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
sir.
Seeing no more questions.
Okay, so we will go over to our utilities department. On page 206, our budget highlights, we have electric, residential, and commercial sales revenue for the year 2022, total $15 million. We have $2.3 million budgeted for residential and commercial sales of gas. We have sales from the gas distribution system to the power plant estimated at $1.8 million. And we have the transfer from the GIS Technological Fund to the GIS mapping system for $230,000. Flipping over, on page 209, our electric generation has no significant changes for the year. On page 212, our electric distribution, we have some major operating expenses, line clearing and maintenance service for $560,000, line repairs for $324,500, substation repairs $110,000, and just reminding you that this isn't taking into account what's needed because of the hurricane damage. Because I know looking at those numbers, it kind of seems small, but that would be why. We also have capital. We have an outage management system for $50,000, system repairs for $800,000, as well as some system additions for $2.5 million.
The outage management system is a new thing.
It is, yes, sir.
That ought to help, Ernie? Good.
Yeah, so we've been talking to some people and trying to figure out how we can have an outage map. We definitely saw the need
The
for
benefit.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. On page 214 is our gas distribution. We have capital of $595,000, which includes some system additions, some regulator station upgrades, distribution system upgrades, a gas pressure monitoring project, and a scratch and sniff program, which is actually required by the state.
Mr. Darren Gidger?
Now, this budget, of course, was done prior to the storm, correct?
Correct.
Because, you know, I have, for our first meeting in December, I am going to invite Mr. Brown to give us an update on our gas system and the problems we have supplying demand. And so if we do anything else, that would have to be done through budget changes. If we just, you know, if there's any other repairs or upgrades that have to be made.
Yes, sir. So we definitely saw, you know, some weaknesses in the system through the storm. We saw that supply and demand. That is something that we have on the list when we are trying to get some federal money. So hopefully we'll have some federal money coming in, and when we come to you guys with an adjustment, it's both a revenue and expense, and it's not just an out-of-pocket expense for us. So that'll be kind of the approach that we take first.
And that's why I scheduled it to the 1st in December to give a little time to get past, you know, some of the storms so we can kind of have some good information. Thank
Right.
you.
Yes, sir. If you go to page 216, this is our utility administration. There are some capital requests for $130,000. We have some AC units, some computers, as well as a camera system replacement.
You got a question? All right. Mr. Michel?
On page 206, the operating transfers out, there's $4 million for 2020 and $4 million for 2021. Why is there nothing for 2022?
Because the need is not there, and because we want to keep it within our utilities department. That again goes back to the American Rescue Plan money that we were able to transfer into this department, as well as other departments that provide government services. So the need is not there to transfer it to the general fund.
Thank you.
Mr. Navy?
I'm not good with this system now. On the camera system replacement, is that for exactly the $100,000? Is that for cameras replacement on what?
That is going to be, because it's in the utility administration, that is actually a camera system for their buildings, for security reasons. Some of that was damaged during the storm, so some of that may be able to be replaced, and some of it is addition.
All right. Well, I guess I'll ask that question later when we get to the other cameras, like you had those cameras in the streets that was damaged and all that kind of stuff in different neighborhoods.
So all of those are what we are trying to put in our insurance claim for unnamed miscellaneous locations. So it's not an actual facility with an address. It's a street pole with a camera. So we're trying to do that through that. We're going to try to do some FEMA reimbursements with it as well. So that's all in place. It's just not quite in here yet.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Michel.
Yeah, I have one more question about the transfer out. Is that typically for the fire and police?
That is what goes into the general fund that can be used for City of Houma.
Okay. So we have enough in the general fund to absorb that without transferring that?
We have enough in general fund to absorb it. We have enough in our public safety fund, in our juvenile detention, and as well to cover the other City of Houma areas.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
Okay. Moving on.
For our GIS mapping system, which is the last part of utilities, there are no significant changes for this year. Moving on to our pollution control. We have sewer collections for 2021, that should be sewer collections for 2022, are estimated to be 7.4 million. For sewage collection, our major expenditures, the utility cost is $473,000, which is the same as 2021. We have a 2.25% collection fee of all sewage revenue collected by Consolidated Waterworks, so that is $160,000. Sewer pump repairs is $80,000. Contractor repairs is $180,000, and they have a capital request of $8,000. Then moving over to page 225, this is going to be for the treatment plant. It is a capital request of a little over $3 million. It is a couple of different things: an ultraviolet disinfection system, replace some major pumps, and some valve replacements. Our pollution control administration, on page 227, there are no significant changes. And on page 229,
Mr. Babin has a question?
What about the SCADA system that's down on all the pollution pumps? Is it still down? How does that factor?
So regarding our SCADA system for the pollution control collections, and it's going to be down for a while. However, cost-wise, we believe it's something that's absorbable within our current budget and reimbursable by FEMA, and that's the plan that we're kind of moving towards. We were presented with the opportunity to hit the reset button. They just got a brand-new system, so we're just going to throw out the old stuff and just go with the new stuff.
So you still have to do every one of them manually, basically?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you and I,
Yes, yes.
there's one in the neighborhood that every once in a while.
They are working on getting their field guys to do more periodic checks on certain things, but in the case of your situation, it's a breaker. They just need to keep a very close eye on them.
Okay. I just wanted to see how the money would work out of that, because I know that system is a good system, and you don't have it. It gets to be difficult to operate without it.
Correct. I mean, we have 180-something lift stations and about 15 field guys that have to keep an eye on that. That SCADA system is our eyes in the office on those lift stations.
Thank you, David.
Mr. Rome, just for clarity, those stations run on internal controls. You're just having to go out there because you can't see them from remotely. You're having to go by and make sure that they're running.
Correct, yes, sir.
I don't
They
want the
all-
people to think that y'all have to run to every one and turn them
No.
on.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Amity.
Yeah.
Yes, all of those lift stations are on floats, but just like with any kind of mechanical thing,
You have a failure.
gremlins get in there and something happens. Our guys have a little bit less of an advantage because instead of seeing it when it exactly happens, 3, 4, maybe even 6 or 8 hours, and that wet well will get full up,
Right.
and then we have an issue. But as of I know of, I think there's only 2 or 3 trouble spots that remain after the storm.
Thank you, Mr. Rome. Mr. Truster, you have a question? Darren?
Yeah, and since we're talking about sewer lift stations, I don't know if one of the problems is the sewer system coming out of the tunnel on the west side.
Yes, sir.
Is that one of the
I
problems?
solved that mystery. Yes, sir. That is tap water that is coming out of that hole. I had it tested by our sewer department. It is chlorinated water. I've turned that information over to DOTD, and I think that they're working on that.
That's a different one he's talking about, though. It's the manhole
I'm talking the manhole right in the middle of
is that Lee Avenue?
the road, right as you, straight, right as you come out of the tunnel. The first manhole, water's always been coming out now for several days, out of that manhole.
You know what,
When you're
it's by
coming from the
Acadian
east.
ambulance, the one
On-
block up from Acadian.
Yes. I think that they had put in a work order to have that scoped to see. I think that there's a failure at the base of that manhole is what they're looking at.
But they are aware of it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Navy?
Yeah, I heard you make reference to the tap water you had tested.
Yeah,
from
yes, sir.
from
There's a
there?
hole at the tunnel.
That's coming from Intercoastal?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, that's what a lot of people believe, that was intercoastal water that was seeping through that hole. I had our sewer department lab tested for the presence of chlorine, and anytime you find a presence of chlorine means it came out of someone's tap. So there's either a water line in that area that's leaking, but what we had actually spoke with DOTD and Mr. Chris Rogers made the recommendations that there's a fire suppression system on the tunnel that's as old as the tunnel, and we believe that those are the pipes that are leaking.
But there's no water that's coming out the Intercoastal that's going into the tunnel?
No, sir. Yeah, it's just tap water that's coming out of that hole. Yes, sir.
Mr. Truster?
Okay, I got a couple of things.
sir.
First off, I actually spoke to Mike Sober today about those leaks, and Mike told me his people tested it, and it's actually intercoastal water coming out of there.
Wow.
It's,
That's all right.
he said that it had, I think they tested 50 parts per million salt. So, that's not, tap water. So I don't know who's right or wrong, but I actually had a conversation, and the leak you're talking about is a valve that's bad, and they are gonna repair as soon as they can get the permit from DOTD.
On the fire
On
suppression
the fire-
system.
No, that's fire suppression system. They tested the, according to Mike Sober, today. They tested all the fire suppression system to the tunnel, all the freshwater supplies to the tunnel, to the restroom. They blocked everything off, and the water was still seeping. They had to tested 50 parts per million salt, which, he didn't say anything about chlorine.
Right.
He said it's salt. And that's too much salt for tap water. But either way, it needs to be fixed, whatever it is.
Right.
I just have a concern, if we got water coming from in the coastal that long, what kind of tunnel we forming under the roadway?
It was treated water. Let's put it, I won't say it's coming from waterworks line, but it was treated water.
But, okay, but my main question was, we're talking about the sewer systems, and the private sewer companies that operate in different areas of parish. Is there any parish agency that oversees these guys to make sure that they stay on top of their game?
No, sir. DEQ is anytime we have an issue, we go through DEQ or the Public Service Commission.
So we have no oversight of how they maintain their pits and their pumps and their lift stations and all that stuff.
Anytime we have a problem, we try contacting the company first. More times than not, they're not responsive. We contact DEQ, which of course is a governmental agency. And then as a means of last resort, we'll contact the Public Service Commissioner and, lodge a formal complaint through them with it.
Yeah, because Tessie is really not responsive to a lot of things.
I got the guy's number at the top. I'm gonna send it to you. I've gotten responses out of him when the rest of them don't.
I'll accept it.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to you. Since we're on the subject, I was gonna ask Mr. Toops to come up and talk about the tunnel. So since we're talking about it, if I can have Mr. Mike Toops come up and give us an update.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, David's been gone for a couple of weeks for vacation and a conference, so he's really not up to date. Mr. Trosclair is correct. Mr. Councilman Navy sent me an email, what it was about 2-3 weeks ago, and I sent it to LADOTD. Chris Rogers called me, wanted to know who to contact at Waterworks. They did. Mike Silber and his guys did a phenomenal job. They've been working on this for the last week. They've isolated the water problem going to the manhole. They put valves. They got it all fixed. As of this morning, the tunnel was closed at 9 o'clock by LADOTD. What they found, and I just got a text, there's groundwater coming in on the pothole on the west side of the tunnel on the center of the eastbound lane. They dug down, they found the source. Since then, they've dug a trench from the source of the water to the drain along the gutter on the side of the tunnel. What they're gonna do tomorrow, they're gonna put a steel plate over the drain that they made, and then they're gonna put asphalt on top of it. So hopefully, they plan on having the tunnel reopened at the end of the day tomorrow, Wednesday at the latest.
Did they say anything about a permanent fix? Because that sounds temporary.
And
And like Mr. Trosclair was saying, you know how water runs, it's gonna find a way to undermine that roadway.
According to Keith Angelet, the PE for LADOTD, he said this repair should last for a while. Now, what for a while means, I don't know. But anyway, we got their attention. Public Safety Director Steve Ponville and I went out. We did a video. We did a video for about a minute, and by the time a car would pass and the next one would come, the pothole would fill up with water. We also got in touch with HPD, and we asked them to go through their accident reports over the last year, and there were 10 accidents that were directly or indirectly related to that pothole, and one of them even mentioned a slimy sludge because of the water constantly coming in. So I think we got that attention with that email, and it came out this morning, and hopefully it'll be finished again by today or tomorrow. And again, Mr. Angelet's words said that it should be a pretty good fix.
I have a couple of questions, Mr. Navy.
Yes, and you're right, Mike, that was a concern. I'm glad you responded to that because I did get your follow-up email on that because a lot of residents was complaining. But like I put in the email, when you're concentrating on driving, coming through that tunnel, first of all, they're coming 35, 40 miles or more through that tunnel. And I didn't see a lot of people squirreled over. And I remember, you ain't got much room in that tunnel to move over. You know, you're gonna hit something. And that's the thing that I was concerned about when I sent you that text, and I'm glad, email, and I'm glad you responded, and I think somebody from DOT did respond to you. But I'm along the line of what John was just saying also. That's a concern for me, you know, as far as a temporary fix. I mean, what's the actual duration of the temporary fit, and how long would that last? I mean, because, you know, that's intercoastal water. We talking some serious stuff there. So I'm concerned about the safety, especially with the way people are driving fast in that tunnel. And like you said, these are accidents that were directly or indirectly because of the potholes. And now, you know, people concentrate, when you drive in the tunnel, people concentrate looking at the water. They're not really looking at how fast they're going or what the car about to do. So I don't understand it. I just don't understand the magnitude what's happening with the fact that this is a dangerous situation, and this is a major thoroughfare for this parish. I mean, I spent about 35 more minutes trying to get here from the east side. So I just don't understand. I think somebody need to come here and explain that to us, and explain it to the public. I mean, I don't understand. I just don't understand that they feel that that iron plate is, how long that's going to last? Or are they worried about the water leaking coming from the intercoastal? Are they really concerned about that? So can we get somebody? I'm just asking. I don't know, to come explain that situation to us.
I've tried several times to get LADOTD to come and talk. I think, John, you replied to one of their emails. I can ask them to come.
I mean, that's just not fair to the people in this parish, because somebody could lose their life, and that's crazy. That's really crazy. That's ludicrous as I ever seen. I don't understand that.
The location where that pothole is, you don't have room to swerve to the left or the right.
That's correct. That's
And
correct.
if you swerve to the left, you're going over onto the oncoming traffic.
Right.
Now the repairs, it does make sense because they said it's groundwater. Now whether that's groundwater coming from inside the tunnel or groundwater coming from the intercoastal, I really don't know. But the fixes make sense, because what they plan on doing, instead of having that water drain down the center of the lane, is going to drain off to the side to the gutter, and then the gutter drains down to the sump down at the middle of the tunnel, and it's pumped out.
But did they tell you all what would actually cause the leak? What would actually cause that water to be coming from the intercoastal into the tunnel? Did they ever tell you that?
That's a good question, Mr. Navy, but I think LADOTD would have to probably hire divers. I don't know if it's a seam problem, or if it's a crack in the outer wall of the tunnel, or if it's just, like you said, ground level water that's seeping, and it has enough of a pressure that it's coming out, and it's coming out substantial, because Steve Ponville and I looked at it about a year ago, and it was just a trickle. Last week when we did the video, it was coming out at least 3 or 4 times as much as it did a year ago. So it was growing. So hopefully this fix is good. What they said as far as the amount of time, it's up for interpretation. But we got to go by what LADOTD tells us.
Well, Mike, I really appreciate your effort to what you've done to really try to, take care of this for the people of Terrebonne Parish. But I think that's very sad. No offense, and I'm not talking about you one state representative, but for the state to sit there and allow this kind of stuff to happen to these people in Terrebonne Parish.
Well, again, Mike Sobert did a great job. He got on it. He had his people out there for at least a week and a half, tracing out lines. The original request was to find out if there was any drawings of any piping in the tunnel. And Mike said that when the tunnel was built, it was the Police Jury Association. There's no drawings on file. We thought it was the fire main, because there is a fire main line running underneath the tunnel. Mike Sobert blocked it off on each side, and at the same time he fixed the manhole, and he isolated that leak. And his guys, like I said, they were working out there at least a week and a half.
Well, I make the choice. I'm not going through the tunnel.
I'm sorry I took so much time, but
We got a couple more questions, Mike. Mr. Harding?
I'm rather supportive of what these guys are saying, and actually kind of looking at it and traveling in that direction. And I'm hearing we can't say how long this is going to be a fix. I'm looking at the location, and I'm remembering the location of this particular situation. And water don't go up here, it goes down here. And the only time, if you're looking at the position in that particular hole and where the intercoastal is, there's got to be something backing up. My concern that, if you have this small fix, that water's going to back up and still back up. Some type of pressure is bringing it back uphill. So with that pressure coming back uphill, we're going to create a cavity. And then because you have that surface Band-Aid on there, subsurface, it could be causing more damage. So we may be in a situation that there are other aspects that actually go in worse than what we are. That Band-Aid is not going to work. I'm in agreement with Mr. Navy and perhaps, contacting our state representatives and see if DOTD, maybe if they don't come here, somehow or another we can get some to set the table. But I don't believe that Band-Aid is going to be fixed because that's back pressure coming up there. And that's why we have the problem that we have. Water don't go uphill. And that's on the upper portion of that. You're going down in there. So water's not going to come up. That's back pressure coming back off in there. So that leak is somewhere else. It's just like a roof. You look at the roof that's leaking, and where it's dripping at, that's not where the hole is. So I think we have a problem somewhere else, and they need to look at that because we created, wherever that water is traveling, and then there might be mud, we're creating a cavity. So that cavity can be exposed at any given time, in my opinion.
No, but I think the repair they made sense the way it was explained to me, because they did they found the source of the leak. They cut a trench from the leak to the existing gutter that's alongside the tunnel, and then it drains down to the very base of the tunnel where there is a sump, and the water's collected there, and it's pumped out by an electric pump. So it's going to relieve the pressure by putting this plate and putting the asphalt on top of it. They said it should last, according to them, a while. Now, what a while means is anybody's guess. But that's the words that was given to me, a while.
Yeah, you said something just now that I didn't hear you say before, and you may have, that they found the source of the leak. So that has been determined where it's coming from.
Yes, sir.
Correct? So if they determine the source of it, then we're not going to get the erosion under, I mean, I agree with what they're saying. If you're just capping this off right now, that water's going to go somewhere else. What's equally disturbing to me is because there's two people I respect a lot here, and that's David Rome and Mr. Mike Sobert, but yet we tested and there's chlorine in it, they tested and there's 50 parts salt in it and no chlorine. That's a little disturbing to me, because then it sends a signal, do we have more than one problem there? I mean, is the tap water diluting the water coming out the intercoastal? Because 50 parts per million is not very much, okay, compared to what we see in the intercoastal a lot of times. So, again, you didn't say it, maybe you said it before and I didn't hear it, but you did say it right there, that they found the source of the problem. And that's a big deal to me, all right? If they haven't found the source, then this is just a Band-Aid, and we're going to have bigger problems down the line. Just a thought. Thank you, John.
Mr. Trosclair?
Yes, Danny, when I talked to Mike today, he told me that when they took a sample from the water in the pothole, they also took a sample out the intercoastal, and the sample had the same amount of salinity. So, now that's coming from Mike Sobel.
Yes, sir.
I'll take that for what it's worth.
I spoke to him today, and that's exactly what he told me.
Yeah, I think what we need to do now is, I think we need to do some more water testing, okay? To find out if we got chlorine in it or just salt, because if there's chlorine in it, that's treated water, okay? So,
But yeah, what Steve said is correct. Mike did send me an email last week, and he said it was groundwater. So I think the situation where they didn't know if it was city water or water from the intercoastal, I believe has been answered.
well, I hope so. We want to make sure, I mean, this is a major thoroughfare. We lose one of the twin spans, we lose the ship channel bridge, and we lose the tunnel. We're in pretty bad shape, okay? So I think this is of utmost importance that we as a government get some kind of resolve from them. And we're not worried about liability on the state right here. In essence, it is liability. The liability of the people traveling on there. And it's just scary to me that we get two conflicting reports like that. So, all right, thank you.
I will ask LADOTD, once they're finished with the repairs, to come and give us a report, whether they do it or not. I've tried before in the past, and I haven't had any luck. Maybe if President Dove sends them a letter, it may be it may have a little bit more power.
Well, we're the resident stepchild in this district anyhow, so we understand that. Thanks.
Okay,
Mr. Toops, thank you for coming and sharing that with us.
okay, thank you.
And Ms. Candace, I guess your break's over. Just when you're on a roll.
Still not really sure how we went from pollution control to the tunnel, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that was all for pollution control. So we will go over to sanitation fund. Our budget highlights are on page 232. We have a 10.97 mil ad valorem. It is projected to be 9.86 million in 2022. The 42,250 average units will produce approximately 5.24 million of collection fees, with a 8.5 per month user fee for garbage and $1.50 for mosquito abatement. Tipping fees are $42 for commercial rates, generating 2.4 million. We have our solid waste services, and our budget highlights for them are on page 233. Our major operating expenses, $3,846,533 is our disposal expense. We have $1,813,073 for transportation, $5,703,200 for solid waste contract, and $616,176 for mosquito abatement. We have a capital request of $98,000 for a tractor loader. And we have personnel where we're going to eliminate 1 senior equipment operator, eliminate 2 field techs.
Candace?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Trustler?
Yes, and this may be a Clay question. We eliminate the senior equipment operator and 2 field techs. I was under understanding that we were already short equipment operators and personnel. So is this something that just
Okay, I can answer that question because Clay
Okay.
probably isn't going to understand what happened.
Okay,
So during the year, we made the Vegetation Department. We did a budget amendment where we made the Vegetation Department. Those 3 individuals that are being transferred to the Bayou Country Sports Park were kept within the Solid Waste Services Division, not the vegetation. So those eliminated positions actually aren't being eliminated, they're just being transferred
so these are
over.
the 3 being transferred to.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Harding?
Yes, ma'am. It says a solid waste contract and an increase of $331,000. You know what I mean? How does that, if you have a contract and you get an increase of a contract, that's actually over a period of time. So could you explain the 330?
I will let Clay come explain that one for you. He's going to know that a little bit more than I will.
Well, we wanted to give Clay a chance to talk. I mean, he probably felt like, hey, all these other people get time.
Clay Nakant, Solid Waste Director. I'm sorry, what's the question? I'm
The
sorry.
question is, we have a contract, right? And the contract right now, you know, I mean, they had 1 year, now it's ended up to be 5 years. So the contract is basically set for $5.7 million, but we have an increase of $331,000. Why is there an increase to a contract that's already on the books of $331,000?
The cost, the CPI, the cost price index that they have every year. This past year, it was 5% or 6% cost of living on there, and then when we do the budget, we project it for the next year, which is a maximum of 7%. So we add that in there to, that's why that cost goes up. All our contracts have a CPI in them.
Okay, well, I appreciate that contract, and then hopefully, you know what I mean, we can actually give some of the people that work over here at the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government the cost of living raises too. That's the question I just want to know, and put that little pun in there, but then I think the people need a raise too. Thank you. No, they need more than that.
Thank you, Mr. Nakam. And you will be reminded that we did say we're going to do a 4%
Yes, sir.
cost increase to the employees of the parish.
Correct. Yes, sir. So January 1, that will go into effect. Okay, over to our landfill closure.
On that, the report that came out from the budget office said inflation was 5.6%. So
they're
4%
still
is
short.
not meeting with inflation, just saying.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry.
Okay, so our landfill closure costs are accounted for in our construction funds. So the next is going to be the Vegetation Department. So we are going to transfer 5 equipment 1 positions to equipment 2 positions. We're adding 1 equipment operator 2, and we're adding 1 mechanic 2. And our capital request is $512,000. They need 3 John Deere cab tractors, 2 side rotator mowers, batwing bush hog, compact loader, and a tool truck.
Mr. Darren Guidry?
Clay, will our mowers be in for this mowing season that we ordered?
Not until April.
Until-
Not until
well,
April.
what-
The two that we ordered,
Yeah.
yeah, they won't be in until April, and when we order these, if it's approved, they probably won't be in until the end of grass cutting season.
Okay,
So it's about a 10 to 12-month waiting period on, I mean, I got parts right now, I got trucks sitting down at ports. We're telling us that the ports are in the ocean waiting to be put on docks. So we at their mercy.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that answered. I wanted to know if this was in addition to the ones that you already have on order, it's addition to. Right. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so we're moving on to the Civic Center. On page 240, the Civic Center receives a special dedicated hotel motel tax, which for 2022 is expected to be $300,000. Their self-generated revenue for facility use, rentals, promotions, and food and beverage is $602,266. And we have a general fund supplement of $986,915, which is the same as 2021. Okay, moving over to, I think next is our risk management. So we'll look on page 245. So this is going to be the insurance control. We have premium revenue from our departments and user agencies for our major self-insured plan. Workers' comp is $1.65 million. General liability is right at $3 million. Vehicle insurance is $700,000. Physical plant is $2,357,000. Gas, electric liability, $605,000. Boiler insurance is $184,500. Medical professional liability is $350,000. We have our major expenditures, which is going to be the premiums for excess of our self-insurance retention. Workers' comp, $377,000. Vehicle insurance, $184,000. General liability, $550,000. Boiler is $184,500. Physical plant is $2.2 million. Gas and electric liability is $529,000. The total claims for all coverage is $3.43 million, and remember, this is not taking Hurricane Ida into account. An actuarial audit is $16,000 that is required for our annual financial reporting. Then we have our group health insurance, which is going to be on page 249. We have premium revenue of $17.2 million. Major expenditures, our premiums for excess liability is $3,245,522, and our claims are $14,155,036. Moving over to our Human Resources Department, this is going to be on page 251. The Human Resources Department is funded by our user charge, which is paid by all departments and divisions which benefit from this service. And the charge for 2022 is 1.5% of salary and wages, or $596,000. Our major expenditures here are our unemployment claims, as well as legal and consultant through this department. And we are again, for the 8th year, doing a summer intern jumpstart program, which hopefully we'll be able to do this year and COVID doesn't mess that up again. Next is the purchasing department, which is on page 254. The purchasing division is funded by an allocation charge to all departments that process purchase orders and requisitions, as well as 6% of the adjudicated property sales. So the total revenues projected is $934,206. We are requesting to add one warehouse manager for 2022.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next is our information technology department on page 257. Information systems funds derive from revenues from the departments that it services. For 2022, the projected user fees are $2.2 million. We have $82,000 in capital requests, which is for server upgrades, some computers, as well as the new firewall. And the personnel, we are wanting to eliminate one of our part-time positions and go ahead and make that a full-time position. Fleet maintenance is on page 261. The major funding source is users charged to other departments, which is right at $1 million. And we are going to add one mechanic.
So basically, if a department has a vehicle, then they're charged back through the mechanic shop.
Correct. Yes, sir. Next is our debt service funds. And if you will look on page 266, you'll see we have a total of expenditures for debt service funds at $11.3 million. These are multiple funds that are made up of the principal and interest payments that we have to make for all of our bonds that are outstanding. Our general obligation bonds, our sales tax bonds, drainage, Go Mesa, all of that, as well as any funds that we're required to keep as a sinking fund for future payments. So that 11.3 is the actual expenditures for 2022. And then last for tonight is going to be our capital projects. If you look at page 280, you will see for 2022, we are adding $7,580,458 to the capital projects for 2022, or that's what we are proposing. This includes the $1 million for the road overlay project, so we're adding to the funding that is still in place right now. We have $500,000 that we're adding for Bayou La Carpe. We have $700,000 that is being added for the Bayou Country Sports Park. So that includes the boys' common area as well as the boys' concession stand. We have various HVAC systems, and that funding is actually coming from the American Rescue Plan money. So it's not actual expenses to us. It's just being transferred here and accounting for in here. We have a juvenile justice perimeter fence that we're putting in for $130,000. We are wanting to upgrade or to fix and repair the elevator in the parking garage, as well as add some security gates to get in and out of the parking garage. And this will also include a public works administrative building.
That's the first floor gates?
Where you drive up the ramps.
So it's the ramp gates?
The ramp gates.
Changing those?
Mm-hmm. To try to have some kind of card access to it. So it would just be those that have access to it that would be able to park in the parking garage.
Mr. Babin?
Yeah, while we're along there, I know we talked about it maybe 6 months ago. Have we had the inspection on the parking garage yet? I think that's an ongoing.
I don't think we have. I think we had appointed the engineer right before
The hurricane.
the hurricane. I hate that to be an answer, but it seems to be a lot of our answers.
but it's
But
true.
I'll definitely check with David Drury, and I know Jeannie Bray was involved in that. So we'll check with them and get
Good.
back to you.
Thanks.
Mr. Trosclair.
Yes, so, I think you're right, I'm the first one to hear about it. This weekend, capital projects, we're looking to build a new facility for public works.
That would be David Rome.
I've been pushing for that for very long, since the first time I went in that building.
From the bottom of my heart and the bottom of the hole in my clerk's office, we thank you all for that consideration for a new building.
I just never could understand, with all the facilities we have in the whole road, we got a public works department in
In
a
a trailer.
modular building.
Yeah.
That's the craziest thing I ever seen. You know, with all the money that was spent on that street by the government, like Terrebonne Parish, and one of the biggest departments in the parish is in a modular building, crazy.
Provided that,
Our dogs got a really good place to stay.
you're right.
We really got a good place for the dogs and cats in the parish, but our public works director, he sat in the trailer. I'm glad I'm on you, buddy.
No more pink flamingos. That's right. Thank y'all.
And that is all that I have for y'all tonight, unless y'all have any more questions.
Any more questions? Mr. Navy?
The elderly program?
Yeah, Mechanicsville Splash Park. I'm trying to,
We had the Mechanicville elderly program for $150,000. We have the Air Base Splash Park.
on page 314, I'm trying to figure out what that is on page 314.
On page 314.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I think I know what that was.
Yeah.
So we had put aside, yeah, the Mechanicville Splash Park at the same time that we had put aside some money for the Air Base Splash Park. When we got the bids in, remember they came in a lot higher than what we had
Yeah, but.
proposed.
But wait, let me just correct you on that one. We actually that was the Mechanicsville Splash Park money, but we directed it back to, the air base, and that's where that money, so you're saying that that was the leftover balance of the, yes, that's what that was. So that's what I was wondering, you'd never be able to build a splash park for $80,000.
No, sir.
No, so my question is, just like we're trying to do the Village East Community Center, could we redirect that money on a budget amendment or something, whatever, to put that money there instead of having that there in that pot like that? Because like I said, you would never build a splash park for $80,000.
So the way that the capital budget works is it's that 5-year period. And we keep it in the funding until it's redirected somewhere else or until we haven't done anything with it. I do believe that there is an engineering agreement, so we'd have to look at that
Yes,
to
but I
see
thought-
if we can get out of that. I'd also have to look at the funding source, which it looks here like it's the parish-wide recreation fund, as to if we could move it over.
Yeah, but that engineer agreement was with the engineer that actually did the splash park on the average David Waite, so I don't think that we had to do on it.
We had 2, I'm
We had
pretty
two?
sure. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Okay, all right, I'm just trying to be correct with that, but, you'd never built a splash park for
So
80,000.
no, the whole purpose is, you keep it in here as you build it up every year. So this 80,000 carries forward until we either say, hey, we're not doing this project, or until we add the money for us to be able to do it. Or until 5 years are up and nothing has happened with it.
So we're gonna hold it for 5 years, or did you just say that we can actually redirect it somewhere else?
We can redirect it somewhere else if the funding source that it was put in here for is eligible for where you want to redirect it to.
Okay,
So I think your answer is going to be yes, I just don't know 100%
all
yet.
right, thank you, that's what I wanted to hear, so yes, okay, thank you. I was gonna keep picking at it until I get it.
All right. Ms. Candace, thank you very much for you and your team for putting this together for us, and you coming in and explaining and making things a little easier for us guys that don't always day in and day out look at numbers. I do, but it drives me cross-eyed. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Babin, second Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor? Any opposed? We are adjourned, gentlemen. Thank you.